The message came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon when most of humanity was busy with their normal lives. People were going to work, children were playing in parks, and nobody expected that everything was about to change. Ambassador Linda Morris was sitting in her office at the United Nations Space Communications Center when the alarms started ringing. Her coffee cup almost fell from her hand as every screen in the building flickered and changed to show the same image. A massive holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, showing 12 alien beings that looked nothing like anything humans had ever imagined. The creature in the center was tall and made of something that looked like blue crystal. It had 3 pairs of eyes that all focused on Linda at the same time. When it spoke, its voice sounded like rocks grinding together, deep and threatening. "I am High Arbiter Vixilon of the Galactic Council," the creature announced. "We have been watching your species for 17 of your years. Your expansion into the Kepler star systems is a violation of Galactic Territorial Accord 742. You have 90 days to remove all your colonies and give us your faster-than-light technology. If you do not obey, we will conquer your entire species." Linda looked at her assistant, a young man named Kevin Park, who had gone very pale. He shrugged at her, not knowing what to say. She turned back to face the projection. 12 alien species stared down at her with expressions that ranged from hatred to mild interest. They clearly expected her to be terrified. They expected her to beg for mercy or ask for more time. Instead, Linda straightened her jacket and spoke calmly. "Thank you for reaching out to us. We will think about what you have said." The silence that followed was heavy and strange. The blue crystal alien's face changed colors several times, shifting from blue to purple to orange. Human scientists would later learn that this meant extreme confusion. "You do not understand what is happening," another council member said. This one looked like a giant snake with arms covered in dark green scales. Her name was Matriarch Salvine, and she was known across the galaxy for destroying anyone who stood against her. "This is not a discussion. This is an order. We have destroyed 17 species who tried to fight us." Linda nodded her head politely, the same way she would nod at someone telling her about the weather. "That is certainly something we will consider. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us?" The transmission ended suddenly, leaving the room in darkness, 6,000 miles away. In a secure room deep inside the Pentagon, Admiral George Patton was watching the recording of the transmission for the 3rd time. His coffee had become cold hours ago, but he had not noticed. "So they want us to just leave our colonies and give them our ships," he said slowly, his voice flat and calm. Secretary of Defense Maria Gonzalez was sitting across from him, her face serious. "Yes, that appears to be what they want." "How many ships do they have?" "Our intelligence teams believe the combined Council fleet has around 40,000 warships." George nodded, his face showing no fear. "And how many do we have?" "Officially, we have 800 ships ready for combat." Maria paused and allowed a small smile to appear on her face. "But that is only the official number, and unofficially. Unofficially, we have considerably more." The thing about humanity that the Galactic Council did not understand was simple. They had been watching the wrong things for 17 years. They had monitored human television shows and radio broadcasts. They had studied human culture and analyzed the military exercises that humans performed openly. What they had not done was look beneath the surface. They had not found the massive construction yards hidden among the asteroids far from Earth. They had not detected the fleets of stealth ships that flew silently through the darkness between stars. They had not considered that a species born on a planet that constantly tried to kill them might not scare. Earth was not a gentle world. Humans had survived ice ages that covered the land in frozen death. They had lived through volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. They had fought diseases that killed millions and wars that killed millions more. And through all of it, they had not just survived. They had grown stronger. On the colony world of New Oregon, 300 light-years from Earth, Governor Samuel Kim received the news with the same calm that Linda Morris had shown. He called a meeting of all the colony leaders and explained what was happening. "The aliens want us to leave," he said simply. "They say if we do not, they will destroy us." The room was quiet for a moment. Then a woman named Rita Martinez, who ran the colony's defense force, spoke up. "What does Earth say we should do?" "Earth says we should continue as normal while they figure out our response. So we are not leaving." Samuel smiled, a thin expression that did not reach his eyes. "My grandmother survived an occupation of her homeland during a terrible war. Soldiers came to her door. Bombs fell on her city every night. Her family starved, but kept going. She used to tell me that our family does not run from bullies. We face them." He looked around the room at the faces of people who had traveled across the stars to build a new home. "We are not leaving. Back on Earth." The world's leaders gathered in secret to discuss their options. Presidents and prime ministers, kings and queens, all connected through secure channels that the aliens could not detect. President Daniel Okonkwo of the United States spoke first. "We have all seen the message. We have all heard their demands. The question before us is simple. Do we give in, or do we stand?" The president of China spoke through a translator. "If we fight and lose, they will destroy us all. If we give in," said the Prime Minister of India, "they will take everything we have built. And then they will destroy us anyway, once we are no longer useful." The British Prime Minister leaned forward. "We have been building in secret for 30 years, ever since we first detected alien signals. We have ships they do not know about, weapons they have never seen. We are not as weak as they think." President Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Then we are agreed. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We prepare for whatever comes next." The vote was unanimous. In the depths of space, far from any star, the hidden shipyards of humanity continued their work. Massive construction platforms built ships at a rate that would have seemed impossible to any outside observer. Workers moved in zero gravity, welding plates of armor and installing weapon systems that existed in no database that Galactic Council could access. Commander Patricia Hayes stood on the observation deck of Construction Platform 7, watching a new battleship take shape before her eyes. "How many more can we finish before they arrive?" she asked her chief engineer. "At current pace, we can add another 200 ships to the fleet." Patricia smiled grimly. "Make it 300. I have a feeling we are going to need every single one." She turned back to watch the workers, small figures moving against the backdrop of stars. They worked in shifts around the clock, never stopping, never complaining. They knew what was coming. They knew what was at stake, and they were not afraid. Across human space, the same scene repeated itself millions of times. Factories increased production. Training camps pushed recruits harder. Scientists worked through the night on weapons and shields and engines that would give humanity an edge in the coming fight. The Galactic Council had given humanity 90 days to surrender. Humanity planned to use every single one of those days to prepare for war. 30 days had passed since the Council delivered their ultimatum, and the aliens were growing impatient. Their messages had become more frequent and more angry, but humanity had stopped responding after the first week. This silence drove the Council to take action. They decided to send an envoy to Earth, someone who could look the humans in the eyes and make them understand how serious the situation was. Ambassador Crixolin of the Mendari was chosen for this task. He was a stout creature with 4 arms and brown fur covering his entire body. He had convinced dozens of species to surrender without a fight, and he believed humans would be no different. His ship arrived at Earth Station 1 with an escort of 6 massive warships, each one powerful enough to destroy a small moon. The humans allowed them to dock, which Crixolin took as a sign of weakness. Surely they were finally ready to talk about surrender. Commander Patricia Hayes met him at the airlock. She extended her hand for what humans called a handshake, a gesture Crixolin found disgusting but accepted anyway. "Ambassador, welcome to Earth Station 1, she said with a polite smile. "This is not a friendly visit," Crixolin growled. His voice was deep and rough, like an animal. "The Council is running out of patience. Your leaders refuse to answer our messages. Your colonies continue to operate as if our warning means nothing. Do you not understand what is about to happen?" Patricia led him through the station's corridors without showing any concern. They passed windows that looked out at Earth, beautiful and blue against the black void of space. "We have been quite busy lately," she said simply. "Busy?" The ambassador's four hands clenched into fists. "Do you have any idea what is coming for you? The Council Armada is gathering. 12,000 warships will arrive in your system within 60 days. You will be conquered or destroyed. There is no other option." They reached an observation deck with massive windows that looked out into deep space. Patricia gestured for the ambus. Sidor to look outside. "Do you see that distant light?" She pointed to a small gleam far from Earth. "That is one of our construction platforms at the L2 point. We started building it 3 years ago," Crixolin snorted. "One construction platform will not save your species from destruction." "No, you are right about that. That is why we have 47 of them." The ambassador went very still. His forearms dropped to his sides and his mouth opened, but no sound came out. This was impossible. The Council had been watching human space for 17 years. They had counted every ship, tracked every construction project. "That cannot be true," he finally said. "We have been observing your system. We would have seen you saw what we wanted you to see," Patricia interrupted. "Humanity has an old saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. We have been speaking very softly for a long time, Ambassador. We have been letting you think we are weak." She turned to face him directly, and there was something hard in her eyes. "We are not weak." Later that day, President Daniel Okonkwo addressed the United Nations in a speech that would be remembered for centuries. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the Great Hall, and billions more watched through screens around the world and across the colonies. "Ladies and gentlemen, representatives of every country on our planet," Daniel began, his voice calm but strong, "we have received what the Galactic Council calls an ultimatum. They demand that we abandon our colonies, surrender our technology, and submit to their rule." He paused and looked across the assembled delegates. Some looked frightened. Some looked angry. All of them were waiting to hear what came next. "I have spoken with every leader in this room. I have talked with our military commanders, our scientists, our teachers, and our workers. We have discussed this situation from every angle, and we have reached a decision." Daniel placed his hands flat on the podium. "Our answer is no." The hall exploded in applause. People stood from their seats and cheered. The sound rolled through the building like thunder. When the noise finally died down, Daniel continued speaking. "The Council believes we are scared of them. They think their big fleet and their threats will make us give up everything we have built. They do not know our history. They have not read about the 300 Spartans who held back an army of thousands at Thermopylae. They have not learned about the defenders of Stalingrad who fought house by house through a destroyed city. They have not heard of the soldiers who stormed the beaches of Normandy to free a continent from tyranny." His voice grew stronger with each word. "They do not understand what humanity does when our back is against the wall. We do not surrender. We do not submit. And we absolutely do not go quietly." Into the night, he looked directly into the cameras that were broadcasting his words to every corner of human civilization. Every citizen of Earth and every colonist among the stars. I say this: stand strong, work hard, prepare yourselves. If they want to fight, we will give them one they will never forget. Ambassador Crixolin returned to his ship that night with his mind racing. Everything he had believed about humans was wrong. They were not the primitive, frightened species the Council thought they were. They were something else entirely, something dangerous. He immediately sent a report to the Council explaining everything he had seen and heard. The response came within hours. "High Arbiter Vexilon demands a full briefing," his communication officer told him. "The Council is meeting an emergency session." When Crixolin appeared before the Council as a holographic projection, the mood was tense. 12 species sat around a circular table, all of them watching him with various expressions of concern. "Tell us what you saw," Vexilon commanded. Crixolin took a deep breath. "The humans have been hiding their true capabilities. They have construction facilities throughout their system that we never detected. Their fleet is not 800 ships. It is several thousand, possibly more. And they are still building. How is this possible? Matriarch Selvine hissed. Our observers are the best in the galaxy. Their observers saw exactly what the humans wanted them to see, Crixalon replied. The humans have been playing weak this entire time. They let us believe they were primitive and defenseless while they built in secret. The council chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. Then we must attack. Now, said Admiral Zorith of the Kalani, a muscular species known for their warriors, before they become even stronger. Or perhaps we should reconsider our approach, suggested Elder Vermax of the Synthesis. A collective consciousness that valued caution. If they have deceived us this thoroughly, we may not know what else they are hiding. Vexilon raised his crystalline hand for silence. His face shifted through several colors as he considered the options. He finally said, We will not show weakness. We will not let these primitives think they have scared us. Instead, we will assemble the full armada. Not 12,000 ships. 20,000. We will show them, and the entire galaxy, what happens to those who defy the Council. The vote was close, but in the end, pride won over caution. On Earth, the population watched and waited. They went to work and took care of their families, but everyone knew that war was coming. In schools, children asked their teachers what would happen. In homes, parents held their children tight and promised that everything would be okay. And in the hidden places, in the secret shipyards and weapons laboratories, in the training camps and military bases, humanity continued to prepare. They had 60 days left. 60 days until the largest fleet in Galactic history would arrive at their doorstep. 60 days to get ready for the fight of their lives and humanity. Intended to be ready, the news of Ambassador Crixalin reports spread through the Galactic Council like fire through dry grass. For the first time in 300 years, the Council was worried about a species they had threatened. High Arbiter Vixtalin stood before the gathered admirals and generals of 12 species, his crystalline body pulsing with angry colors. The holographic display in front of him showed the human solar system, marked with red dots indicating known human defenses. How many ships did you say they have? He demanded again, as if hearing the number once more might change it. Our latest estimates suggest between 3,000 and 4,000 warships, Admiral Zorith replied. But as Ambassador Crixalin warned, their production capacity is unlike anything we have seen before. They could have more by the time we arrive. Then we will bring more ships, Vexilon declared. 20,000 vessels. The largest fleet ever assembled. We will crush them with pure numbers. Not everyone agreed with this plan. Elder Vermex floated forward, his collective consciousness speaking through a translation device. We have never encountered a species like this before. They have been planning for our arrival for decades. Perhaps we should attempt diplomacy one more time. Matriarch Selvine hissed with contempt. Diplomacy is 4 equals. These humans are nothing but insects that have grown too bold. We will step on them and continue with our business. And if they fight back harder than expected? Vermax asked, and we will bring more ships. And more after that. The Council has never lost a war, and we will not start now because of some hairless apes from a backwater planet. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Pride and tradition demanded that the Council respond to defiance with overwhelming force. To do anything else would show weakness to the other species watching from the edges of the galaxy. The order went out. Assemble the Armada. Meanwhile, in the space between Mars and Jupiter, the human fleet was gathering. Admiral George Patton stood on the bridge of the carrier Independence. Watching his tactical display fill with friendly signals, ships of every size were arriving from across human space, emerging from hidden bases and secret construction yards. Destroyers and cruisers, battleships and carriers, and some vessels that did not fit into any normal category. His executive officer, Commander Diana Lopez, stood beside him with a tablet displaying fleet statistics. Current count is 4,200 ships, Admiral, she reported, plus the home defense forces around Earth and the colony defense units. George nodded slowly. They were still outnumbered nearly 5-1. In any normal war, those odds would be hopeless. But George Patton had studied every war humanity had ever fought, and he knew that numbers were not everything. Status on the special projects? He asked. Diana checked her tablet. Project Longbow is fully operational. All platforms are in position and ready to activate on your command. Project Hammer is at 92% completion. The last ships are receiving their upgraded systems now. She paused before continuing. And Project Nightmare is ready, sir, though I sincerely hope we do not have to use it.
So do I, Commander.
So do I. Project Nightmare was humanity's last resort, got a desperate measure that they had spent 30 years developing in absolute secrecy. It was a weapon that could change the rules of space warfare forever, but using it would come at a terrible cost. George hoped the Council would surrender before things went that far. On the colony world of New Oregon, the evacuation was proceeding with remarkable calm. Governor Samuel Kim stood at the main spaceport, helping direct families onto the transport ships that would carry them to safety. Children clutched their favorite toys while parents carried whatever possessions they could fit in small bags. It was a sad scene, but there were no tears, no panic. No chaos. Colonel Rita Martinez, in charge of the colony's military forces, watched the orderly evacuation with surprise. I expected more panic, she admitted to Samuel. These people are leaving everything they built. Their homes, their farms, their businesses. How are they staying so calm? Samuel shrugged. They knew this might happen when they signed up to be colonists. The frontier is dangerous. Sometimes it pushes back. But are you not scared? The Council has destroyed entire species. 17 of them, they said. Of course I am scared, Samuel admitted. I am terrified. But fear does not help anyone. My grandmother used to tell me stories about her grandmother, who lived through a terrible war. Enemy soldiers at the door every night. Bombs falling from the sky. Neighbors disappearing and never coming back. She was scared every single day for years, smiled sadly at the memory. But she kept going. She raised her children, took care of her family, and survived. When the war ended, she helped rebuild her country. That is what our family does. That is what humans do. We keep going. A small girl tugged at his sleeve. She could not have been more than 6 years old, with bright eyes and tangled hair. Mr. Governor, are the aliens going to hurt us? Samuel knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. He had children of his own, and he knew how important it was to be honest with them. I am not going to lie to you, sweetheart. Some bad aliens want to hurt us. But we have brave soldiers and strong ships, and they are going to protect us. So you be brave too, okay? Get on the ship with your family and go somewhere safe. And when this is all over, you can come back home. The girl nodded seriously and ran back to her mother. Samuel stood up and watched them board the transport. He wondered how many of these families would ever see their homes again. He wondered if he would survive the coming storm, but he did not let any of that show on his face. Across human space, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Civilians evacuated to protected locations while military forces prepared their defenses. Factories worked around the clock, producing weapons and supplies. Training camps pushed new recruits through accelerated programs. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone understood the stakes on Earth. Lieutenant Commander Katie Sullivan was receiving her special assignment. She sat in a briefing room aboard Earth Station 1, facing Admiral George Patton on a screen. He looked tired but determined, the face of a man carrying the weight of humanity's survival on his shoulders. Sullivan, I have a job for you, he said without preamble. When the Council fleet arrives, I need someone to deliver a message. Katie raised an eyebrow. A message, sir? We are going to give them one last chance to turn around. I need someone who can look those alien commanders in the eye and make them understand that we are serious. Someone who will not flinch or show fear, no matter what they say or do. And you want me for this job? Your psych evaluations say you have the second lowest fear response in the entire fleet. George almost smiled. Your commanding officer says you would argue with a black hole if you thought you could win? I need that kind of confidence. Katie considered for a moment, then nodded. What exactly will I be saying to them? You will offer them a chance to leave peacefully. Tell them that if they go home, we will not follow. But if they continue, we will show them exactly what humanity can do. And if they refuse?" George's expression hardened. "Then you get out of the way and let us show them." Katie Sullivan left that briefing with a strange mix of excitement and fear. She would be flying alone into the middle of the largest enemy fleet in history. She would be standing between 20,000 warships in her home. If anything went wrong, she would die before anyone could help her. But someone had to do it, and she had never been very good at backing. Down from a challenge, the countdown continued. 40 days until arrival. Then 30. Then 20, both sides prepared. For the collision that would change the galaxy? Forever, the storm was coming, and humanity was ready to face. The day finally came. Sensors across the solar system detected the ripples in space-time moments. Before the Council Armada emerged from hyperspace, 20,000 warships appeared in a formation that had conquered 100 worlds, spreading across the void like a cloud of metal and fire on Earth. People stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky, even though they could not see anything. They knew what was happening. They knew that somewhere out in the darkness, the enemy had arrived. High Arbiter Vextalon stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the human solar system appear on his screens. His crystalline face glowed with satisfaction. "Begin broadcasting our arrival," he commanded. "Let these humans see what they face. Let them understand their doom." The broadcast went out on every frequency. Across Earth, across every colony, every space station, every ship. Screens flickered and showed the greatest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Massive dreadnoughts, the size of small moons, floated alongside thousands of cruisers and destroyers. The formation was perfect, geometric, designed to inspire terror in anyone who saw it. And then the broadcast showed what was waiting for the Council fleet. The human fleet had arranged itself in 3 defensive lines around Earth. The first line consisted of the main battle fleet, over 4,000 ships covered with weapons and armor. Behind them was a network of orbital defense platforms, massive stations bristling with guns and missiles. And behind that was Earth itself, protected by ground-based weapons capable of hitting targets in orbit. But what truly made the Council commanders pause was what floated between the two fleets. A single small ship. Hanging alone in the empty space, it was tiny compared to the warships around it, barely larger than a shuttle. Its design was sleek and smooth, almost beautiful in its simplicity. It carried no visible weapons, no shields, nothing that could possibly threaten the armada facing it. On its hull, painted in letters large enough to read from a great distance, was a message in Galactic Common. "We would like to talk." "What is this supposed to be?" Matriarch Sylvine hissed from her position beside Vexallen. "A messenger ship, Matriarch," the tactical officer reported. "They are requesting a communication channel." Vextalon stared at the tiny vessel with all 6 of his eyes. Protocol said he should ignore it, sweep it aside like the insignificant speck it was, and begin the conquest. But something about this situation was strange. What kind of species sent a single unarmed ship to face 20,000 warships? Curiosity won. "Open a channel," he ordered. The view screen flickered, and a human woman appeared. She was young by human standards, with dark hair and a smile that seemed completely wrong for the situation. She looked relaxed, almost amused, as if facing annihilation was just another day at work. "Hello there," said Lieutenant Commander Katie Sullivan. "Thanks for answering my call. I was worried you might just shoot first and ask questions." "Never." Vextalon studied her face, looking for signs of the fear she must be feeling. He found none. "You were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," he said. "Honestly, probably a little bit of both." Katie leaned back in her chair, as if she was having a casual conversation with a friend. "My mother always said I had more courage than common sense. But that is not why I am here." "Then why are you here, little human?" Katie's smile faded slightly, replaced by something more serious. "I am here to make you an offer. One time only. No second chances." What kind of offer could you possibly make that would interest us? Simple. Katie held up her hands. Turn around. Go home. Leave humanity alone, and we will leave you alone. Forget this ever happened, and go back to whatever you were doing before you decided to threaten us. The silence on the Council flagship was absolute. 20,000 ships, 12 species, centuries of conquest and domination. And this single human was telling them to go away. Selvine's laugh was cold and sharp. You cannot be serious. Deadly serious, actually. Katie's eyes moved to the matriarch. We know what you have done to other species. We know you have destroyed civilizations and enslaved entire worlds. We know you think you can do the same to us. She leaned forward, and something changed in her expression. The casual amusement disappeared, replaced by something cold and hard. But here's what you do not know. You do not know what we are capable of. You do not know what we have built. You do not know what we will do to protect our home. And I promise you, Arbiter, you really do not want to find out. Vexilon felt something he had not experienced in a very long time. For just a moment, looking into this human's eyes, he felt doubt. But he pushed it aside. He was the High Arbiter of the Galactic Council. He had crushed 17 species. He would not be intimidated by one young woman in a tiny ship. Your offer is rejected, he said flatly. Surrender now, and we may show mercy. Continue this foolishness, and every human in existence will suffer. Katie nodded slowly, as if she had expected this answer. I had to try. My commanders wanted to give you one last chance. Now I can tell them that I did. Your commanders are fools, just like you. Maybe. Katie's smile returned, but it was different now. There was no warmth in it, no humor. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. But my commanders are also the people who have been planning for this day for 30 years. They built ships and weapons in places you never found. They trained soldiers and pilots who have been waiting their whole lives for this moment. She began turning her ship around, preparing to return to human lines. One more thing, Arbiter. You said you have destroyed 17 species. You should know that humans have spent 10,000 years destroying each other. We have fought wars that lasted generations. We have invented weapons that could kill millions in seconds. We have done terrible things to ourselves that would make your worst nightmares seem like pleasant dreams. Her ship's engines glowed as she accelerated away. You are not the first enemy we have faced. You are not even the worst. And in about 30 minutes you are going to understand why that matters. The communication ended. Vexilon stared at the screen for a long moment, his crystalline form flickering through a dozen different colors. Then he straightened and issued the order he had come all this way to give. All ships begin the attack. Katie Sullivan flew her little ship back toward human lines as fast as her engines could carry her. Behind her, 20,000 alien warships began their advance. A wave of metal and fire sweeping toward Earth. She opened a channel to the Independence. Admiral Patton? They said no. George's voice came back steady and calm. I expected as much. Get back to the fleet, Sullivan. You did your part. Yes, sir. What happens now? Now we show them what they are dealing with. Katie pushed her engines to maximum and raced toward safety. Behind her, the Battle of Earth was about to begin. On the Independence. Admiral George Patton watched the Council fleet approach on his tactical display. 20,000 red dots moving slowly but steadily toward the thin blue line of human defenders. All ships, this is Admiral Patton, he broadcast to the fleet. You know why we are here? You know what we are fighting for? Today we defend our home. Today we show the galaxy what humanity can do. He paused, letting his words sink in. Make them remember this day. Make them remember us. Across 4,000 human ships, crews prepared for battle. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Pilots climbed into their fighters and waited for the order to launch. The two fleets drew closer, and then the universe exploded into light. The first wave of Council ships crossed into weapons range at exactly 1400 hours, Earth Standard Time. They came expecting a regular space battle, the kind they had fought and won 100 times before. Two fleets would exchange fire, shields would glow and eventually fail, and the side with more ships would eventually win. It was simple mathematics. 20,000 ships against 4,000 could only end one way, but humanity had never been very good at following the rules. Project Longbow activated first, across the entire solar system. Hidden platforms that had been floating silent and dark suddenly came alive. From the asteroid belt to the outer planets, from positions behind the moon to spots hidden in the sun's glare, hundreds of weapon stations revealed themselves and opened fire. Beams of focused light traveling at impossible speeds struck the leading council ships before anyone even knew what was happening. Giant dreadnoughts that had survived dozens of battles simply vanished, converted into expanding clouds of hot gas in the blink of an eye, on the Eternal Dominion. Alarms screamed as the tactical display turned red with casualty reports. What is happening? Matriarch Sylvine screamed, her serpentine body thrashing in confusion and rage. They have weapons platforms hidden throughout the entire system, the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking with fear. We are being hit from every direction at once, then find them and destroy them. But by the time council ships could turn their guns toward the attacking platforms, those platforms had already gone dark. They stopped firing, became invisible again, and moved to new positions while the council scrambled to respond. Then they opened fire again from completely different angles. It was like fighting ghosts. The council ships spun in circles trying to find enemies that appeared, struck with devastating force, and then vanished into the darkness. Hundreds of ships died in the first 10 minutes of battle without ever seeing what killed them. Project Hammer came next. The human fleet advanced in a formation that the council had never encountered before. Ships weaved through and around each other in patterns that should have been impossible, moving as if they were all controlled by a single mind. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, multiple ships focusing their fire on single targets. Overwhelming shields before they could recover. Admiral George Patton commanded from the bridge of the Independence, his voice calm and steady despite the chaos of battle. Around him, his crew worked with the efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. Focus fire on their command ships, George ordered. Take out their coordination, and the whole fleet falls apart. Commander Diana Lopez relayed the orders, and across the void, human ships responded as one. The council fleet was not helpless. Their weapons were powerful, and their shields were strong. Their commanders had centuries of experience fighting wars across the galaxy. Council fire struck human ships and sent them spinning into destruction. Crews died in flames and vacuum, but for every human ship that fell, 5 council vessels were destroyed. On the Eternal Dominion, High Arbiter Vexilon watched his armada crumble with something close to disbelief. Nothing in his long life had prepared him for this. 17 species had knelt before the council. 17 civilizations had surrendered or been destroyed. How could these humans be different? This is not possible, he whispered, his crystalline form flickering through colors that had no name. They are primitives. They only discovered space travel 200 years ago. How can they be doing this? Ambassador Crixolin, who had stayed on the flagship to advise the Arbiter, spoke quietly. I tried to warn you. They are not what we thought they were. Then what are they? Crixolin thought about everything he had learned about humans. Their casual confidence in the face of threats. Their strange sense of humor, even in dark moments. Their absolute refusal to be intimidated by anything or anyone. They are survivors, he finally said. Their own planet tried to kill them 1,000 different ways. Ice ages, volcanoes, earthquakes, plagues, and disasters of every kind. They almost destroyed themselves in wars that killed millions. And through all of it, they survived. They adapted. They grew stronger. He pointed at the tactical display, now showing far more red than blue. We are not the first threat humanity has faced. We are just the newest one, and they have been preparing for us for 30 years. Vexilon watched another cluster of his ships vanish from the display. His fleet was dying, and for the first time in his life, had no idea what to do. 3 hours into the battle, the Arbiter made the only decision that seemed possible. All ships, retreat, he commanded. Fall back to hyperspace rally point 7. We will regroup and return with reinforcements. It was a sensible order. Even with their losses, the Council still had thousands of ships. They could withdraw, gather more forces from across the galaxy, and return with an even larger armada. The humans had won the first battle, but the war could still be won. But when Council ships tried to jump to hyperspace, nothing happened. Arbiter, the navigation officer, said, his voice hollow with terror. The hyperspace engines are not responding. Something is blocking our ability to jump. We cannot leave. Project Nightmare. Humanity had spent 3 decades developing a way to lock down hyperspace in a limited area. It was expensive. It was temporary. It required massive amounts of energy and could not be maintained for long. But for a few crucial hours, no ship in the Sol system could escape to hyperspace. The Council fleet was trapped. Admiral George Patton's voice came across all frequencies, broadcast to both fleets. Attention Council Armada. This is Admiral George Patton of the United Earth Fleet. Your hyperspace drives are disabled. You are surrounded. You have 2 options. He paused to let his words sink in. Option 1. You surrender. Power down your weapons and shields. We will treat you as prisoners according to our laws, which require that we treat captured enemies with dignity and respect. Another pause. Option 2. You continue fighting. In that case, we will destroy every single ship in your fleet. Not one of you will escape. Not one of you will survive to tell others what happened here. His voice grew harder. You came here to frighten us, to make us fear you, to make us kneel. But you made a terrible mistake. You threatened our home, our families, our future. George thought of his own children, safe on Earth with their mother. He thought of all the families across human space who were watching this battle, hoping, praying. Today you learn what happens when you do that. Today you learn what it means to fear humanity. Silence stretched for a long, terrible moment. Then, one by one, Council ships began powering down their weapons. The surrender ceremony took place aboard Earth Station 1. In the same observation deck where Patricia Hayes had first shown Ambassador, Crixalon, the Hidden Shipyard's President Daniel Okonkwo, represented humanity. High Arbiter Vexthalon represented the Council. The terms were simple: complete withdrawal of Council, forces from human space, recognition of human territorial claims, and a formal apology for the unprovoked aggression. Vexthalon signed with hands that did not quite tremble. His crystalline face showed colors no human could read, but everyone in the room knew what he was feeling. Defeat, humiliation, fear when it was done.
Ow.
Daniel offered his hand for a human handshake. Vexthalon looked at the gesture for a long moment, then accepted it. You have won a great victory today, the Arbiter said quietly. But the Council has many members and many ships. This may not be the end. Daniel nodded. Maybe not. But if you come back, we will be ready. And if you bring friends, we will be ready for them too. He smiled, and there was iron beneath the warmth. That is what you should tell the other species in your Council, Arbiter. Humanity does not want war. We want to explore, to build, to grow in peace. But if anyone threatens our home, our people, our future, we will fight, and we will win. He released the Arbiter's hand. We were ready for you before you even knew we existed. We will be ready for whatever comes next. As the Council delegation departed, Katie Sullivan stood at a viewport watching their damaged ships limp toward the edge of the system. The hyperspace blockade had been dropped, allowing them to leave. Their fleet of 20,000 had been reduced to less than 8,000, and most of those were damaged. Diana Lopez joined her at the window. Quite a day, Diana said, double quotes. Yes. Katie was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. Do you think they will come back? Probably. Empires do not like losing. It makes them look weak. And when they come back, Diana smiled. Then we will be waiting. Just like today. Kate laughed softly. She thought about everything that had happened. The ultimatum, the threats, the battle, the victory. And she thought about what came next. Humanity had proven something today. Not just to the Council, but to the entire galaxy. They had shown that they would not be bullied. They would not be conquered. They would not kneel. Other species would hear about this battle. They would learn about the primitives from a small blue planet who had stood against the Galactic Council and won. Some would be frightened. Some would be inspired. Some might even want to be friends. The galaxy was bigger than humanity had ever imagined. Full of dangers and wonders they were only beginning to discover. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, more threats to face. But humanity would face them the same way. They'd face this one, together. Unafraid, ready for anything, Katie turned away from the window and headed back to her ship. There was work to be done, training to complete, preparations to make. The Council might return in a year or 10 years, or 100 years. And when they did, humanity would be waiting, because that was what humans did. They survived. They fought. They won, and they never, ever gave up.